So welcome again to Global Voices podcast. And today, just after coming from Tanzania, we go back to West Africa. In fact, we go back to Nigeria, where we all started with Emmanuel. And this time we are going to talk to Emeka Ozurumba. And he tells me he's in Abuja, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, I'm in Abuja.
He's in Abuja, and he'll tell us a bit about Abuja because he just informed me that Abuja is bigger than Lagos. Kano is bigger than Lagos. And we all, at least many Kenyans and many Africans, if you ask them, those who are outside Nigeria, they'll tell you Lagos is the biggest city, but we understand it's not. But we'll get that information as we go along. So welcome, Emeka, and welcome to Global Voices.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patrick. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you also. So this is the third, I think, if I'm not wrong, for the interview for Global Voices, and we are growing. I know you're a member of Global Voices. But before we go into details about Global Voices, can we understand, first of all, who Emeka is?
Okay, Emeka Ozurumba is a journalist and a TV presenter. I started my TV presenting journey when I actually got, and that was May of 2019, and I still work with them now. I have my TV show called The Weekend Show, of which I have my style. We have politics, we have entertainment. Then I anchor my literary segment called Your Poetic Interlude. I started the segment, pioneering it, and it has to do with literature too. You know, I started the program because I wanted to get poets and get people to interact with each other. That was why I started, you know, my TV show. And by the grace of God, I've been able to interview more than 200 writers on the program, which is so astronomical. I've reviewed close to 140 something books, which I have them as souvenirs, reviews from poets all around the world, which is the reason why I actually started. So it actually gives me a lot of joy, you know, to see that kind of literature being, you know, conversed between people and transient in the aspect global outreach, in the aspect of, you know, creativity and relativity also. So those are some of the reasons, and those are some of the makeups of my I like poetry also, and I've been a vanguard of poetry since I was young. You know, T.S. Eliot. Let me just say the modernists, and then I grew also to love the classics. You know, Shakespeare, you know, Dickens, and all. And then Shoinka, you know, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, you know, so Dennis Brutus, you know, different poets from all around the world gave me different hemispheres of what they could actually bring to the table in terms of literature. So that, shaped my discernment in terms of how I, wanted to see things, the perspective I wanted to give out to the world. So those are some of the things that actually propel me as a person. So if you see me, basically you see literature. That's what Emeka.
Okay, that's interesting. Interesting because we also, again, birds of a feather. I was a journalist for many years for the print media, and I've also written a number of books. But interviewing 200 people, that's quite a feat. And I know you also interviewed one of our members, James Carbon, all the way from the US, in your program.
Yes, I've interviewed. Let me say, I've had close to 50 international shows. I've done shows from the US, from Canada, from Australia, you know, from Britain, from UK, from Scotland, from London, you know, different writers all around the world. And I've interviewed people also from South Africa, from Kenya, you know. Yes. So
and the show and I think the show will soon be on the other foot when you interview me in your TV show.
Yes, I'm going to interview. We're thinking about, and we're going to make that happen. So I just want the outreach to be, you know, to different continents. First, I started, it was not intercontinental, it was first continental. different reviews and different interactions with people that why don't I try to make it international? Why don't I try to connect? And thank God with social media now and with different connectivities, you can actually reach people in different places, which were
Yeah.
impossible at the time. So,
Yeah.
technology advancing the cause of literature, which I'm so proud about.
Yeah.
Yes. So
That's quite good. That's quite good because through this technology, we are able to talk, you and I here right now, and other
yes.
interviews through the media. We are able to, as global voices, to put poets of the world
Yeah.
together so that they can have their own conversation and share creativity and so on. And so you say, of course, you said you're a journalist, but before you become a journalist, you are a poet. Because a journalist is made, a poet can, most of the time, they are born.
Yes,
They are
yes.
not
It's
made.
inherent.
Tell us about
Yes.
that. How did poetry start with you?
Well, I remember when I was young, I was fascinated by What is Life by D.H. Lawrence. It goes like this: What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the bowl and stare. When I was about 6 years old in front of the whole school. So I was fascinated by it then. So I didn't know my headmistress after my recitation. She called me. She was like, Emeka, that's actually very fascinating. So you love poetry at this early age. I was like, yeah, I flow of how it was. Then
Mm,
from then on, I started reading Keats. I started reading, different. She now gave me another piece to recite, which was Ode to a Nightingale. That was quite harder, so I
mm,
couldn't do that. So when she gave me it was harder, I couldn't. But in honest, I didn't learn it because she gave me for like 2 weeks. I should recite it.
mm,
When you're a kid, sometimes you're lazy. You don't want to, memorize. I didn't want to, so I told her I couldn't. But she told me, Emeka, you can do this. If you can do that, you can do this one.
mm,
Then when I now, after the time passed, I now learned it. When I learned it, it was so magical to me. Then from there on, I started reading different kinds of poems. I just loved. Then I started writing my own poems.
mm,
Everybody knew me. I was young.
mm,
I started writing my own poems.
mm,
Then as I kept on growing older, because in the University of Abuja where I studied, I read
mm,
English language.
mm.
So I went and read English language. So I got very sophisticated in art of writing because I learned different kinds of writing skills. Then
Yeah.
the thing just upped my writing game, and the poet in me surfaced, and that's
Yes.
why I am. Yes,
Yeah, I've read some of your poems. In fact, I think you shared two with us for the
yes,
anthology, and they are quite cryptic. There are some poets, and people like you and James, that one, the style
yes,
you write, and there's another guy called from Nigeria also. I, when I remember his name, I'll mention, but he's in our group. You read their poetry, you want to read it twice to get the message because it's so deep, so cryptic.
yes,
And I think, okay, each one of us have our own way of doing the poetry because the spirits comes through us differently. And
yes,
again, from our own experience. So yeah, I agree with you. You have learned. I think it's because of having read so many books and also maybe
yes,
even tried and attempted to learn new skills. And Nigeria is famous for great writers, but
yes,
I think most of Africa know them as novelists,
yes, yes.
like
As
Chinua
novelists, I'm
Achebe.
like,
Wole Soyinka,
yes,
Chinua Achebe. We know them as novelists.
yes.
Who are the poets there, apart from, of course, you
So,
and many
uh,
others?
our fathers, which taught us poetry. We have Christopher Okigbo, which died during the Civil War. He
Mm,
wrote poems like "Come Thunder," like "Heaven's Gate," like the call of Mother Idoto. Those were very lovely poetry. He
mm,
brought, but he died in the Civil War,
mm.
1967.
Biafra?
He died. So it was quite bad because poetry was lost due to him. He was a vanguard of poetry, but because
Mm.
he died, poetry and the effect and the impact of his poetry was not as much as it would have been if he had continued writing. He died at the age of 30, I think 4 or 5.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that was very young. So we also have writers like Gabriel Okara. Gabriel Okara famously wrote one poem called "The Call of River Nun," which won him a prize. We
Okay.
also have we also have people like J.P. Clark.
Mm,
J.P. Clark wrote beautiful poems like Abiku. Streamside Exchange. You know, we also have poems like we also have you know, poets like a Neo Sundari, which wrote a lovely poem, Songs of the Market.
Okay.
We also have Titus Chukwuemeka Nwosu. You know, he wrote one lovely poem, Achike. You know, so these are lovely poets. You know, these are people that when you read their poems, it goes far in discernment. You know,
Okay.
we've also had people like Olisadebe. There was a writer, Olisadebe. His name is Olisadebe. He's, you know, he's one of our most classical writers. So we've had the impact, you know, we've had the impact of different writers over the years giving us different kinds of poetry. So it depends.
Yeah. Okay. The person the person I'm remembering is actually, I think he's goes by the name of Tomonire or something like Tomonire Richards. I may not be
Okay, Richard.
pronouncing. Yeah.
No,
Did you get the name?
Yes, Tomlin Richards. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
I know.
He's also very good. He's also very good. And I think there's also this style of writing poetry. You know, the very old British way, British style of writing poetry. But
Using sonnet,
yeah,
using
yeah,
was
yeah.
it using the what's the style of that stuff again? Where iambic, the iambic meter,
Yeah, the
using the
meter
iambic.
and so on. But then I think because we also grew our, from our culture and tradition, we also had our own songs. We also had our poetry. And therefore, as we grow our own poetry, we don't need to kind of, follow those styles. We have to come with our own individuality.
Yes, yes. Ballads and myths.
Yeah.
That is one key aspect of Africa.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we're talking about African, we're talking about the history of African poetry, and I told you it started, you know, diages. You know, like in the Igbo culture now, we have a tradition of diages, which are beautiful poetic songs. We've had myths, retelling of stories that have gone through, you know, phases like Chaka the Zulu. Like we've had
Yeah.
telling of different stories, which they use poetic settings.
Yeah.
So there is the need in, you know, that process of writing to promote African literature and to promote the history of African literature.
Yeah.
You know, as we said, songs and storytelling. So the modernism, yes, you know, modernism helps, but
Yeah.
there are different styles of writing. For instance, modernism doesn't have a critical approach when it has to do with oral poetry. When it has to do with oral, you
Yeah.
know, oral poetry has to deal with reciting. So when your poetry is modernistic, it loses the recital tool. It loses the tool of reciting, you know,
Yeah.
because when you're reciting it, you have to have rhyme. You have to have, you know, the way you're pronouncing your word, whether polysyllabic or monosyllabic, you have to, you know, have those things in order. But when you're
Yes.
writing with modernism, you don't have clear patterns on how to write. You write
Yes.
in different aspects, which might not have an oral approach to write. So,
Sure.
you know, the African style of writing encourages spoken word and encourages oral, you know, sense of, you know, poetry, which is very lovely.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
talking about individuality, I remember, and as I told you earlier on, that journalists may be made, but poets are born. Personally, I
Yes.
started with fiction, that's prose writing. But later on, I discovered I could do poetry. And how it came is because I would hear rhythm. I would recognize rhythm and rhyme even when people are speaking or when are talking. And when I would speak,
Yes.
maybe I'm in a conversation with somebody and I would speak something, I would realize that's a rhythm. There's rhythm there, there's rhyme there. And gradually it would keep on ringing into
Yes.
my
Yes.
mind until I started trying it. And well, I may not be
Yes.
there yet, but I know I write good poems.
Yes,
Yeah,
you do. You write
and
beautiful poems,
we also had
Christopher. You do.
solar.
You're
Sorry,
huh?
sorry, I
I
didn't
said
get.
your poetry has lovely rhythm. Lovely
Yeah,
rhythm.
yeah.
Your poetry has lovely rhythm. The rhythm
Okay,
of your I
yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
Oh yeah. Thank you. I remember there's this Mbela Sone de Poco. You know him? He's a West African.
No, I don't.
I think he wrote Black and White in Love some years back.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've not read it yet.
I will look for details. I'll look for him and send you a link. But I was presented with his
Okay.
book as a prize when we had a school competition of poetry writing. That's when I discovered I could do it years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So you are a member of Global Voices. You may not be contributing a lot
Yes.
on the platform. Maybe you're so busy, but at least you supported us by sending your 2 poems for the anthology. And I would just want
Yes.
you to give me a feeling and a thought about the group.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I think
Global
the group
Voices.
is very nice. I'm always participating on the group because I'm always you know when people put their poems, I'm always talking about it, commending it.
Mm.
Like we have different lovely poets. Even Mr. James, even you, me.
Yeah,
Like what I love about Global Verses is the
yeah.
diversity of poems.
Mm.
Like there's a I think his name is Slot something. I've forgotten. The name is East African, but it's Slot something. His poem
Slot.
is very lovely, like spoken word.
Slot,
Yes, Slot.
Slot the poet.
His poem is very lovely.
Yeah, we
Slot the
just
poet.
I
Like
had
I
a second interview with him, and it's online, so you can check his interview. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's so lovely. Like
Mhm.
the diversity
Yeah,
of how the poems are. Global like we have poets from Africa. You even
yeah,
got some from America. Do you
yeah,
understand? So
yeah.
I mean, I love the feel of what you're doing, and I love the fact that you're getting people together to write poems, to interact poetically, to see their various works, to interact with each other, to
Mm.
motivate each other, to read each other's work, to get critical analysis,
Yeah.
from the poems. So I love it so much, and I don't think it's going to go around. I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. I think Global Versus is going to go on until it becomes global. So that's the vision also that I have. And I'm also, as you made me, I'm also an admin in the group, and I
Yes, you
hope to
are.
get Patreon.
Mm.
And with some of my works going on now, I
Yeah.
hope I'm going to participate more, and other people are also going to put their works, and it's going to be very lovely. So I commend you and bravado and bravura for your, Herculean efforts of, establishing this lovely medium and motivating them, propelling it to the stage which you have perspected it to be, which is going to get to.
Yeah, thank you very much. And there are so many other ideas coming up because I'm also thinking of introducing maybe a monthly meeting, a monthly Zoom meeting where we
Yes,
invite
yes,
everybody, we send a link, we invite everybody, and then when we are there, talking
yes,
concurrently, of course, with a
yes.
moderator so that not everybody talks at the same time. And then we
Okay.
discuss issues, we discuss plans, we discuss our own creativity, we stuff, anything, not sometimes not even planned, but we meet and talk.
Yes, at least it's very good for poets to come together, to have
Yeah,
that meeting, to talk to each other, to read their works, to recite, works with each other, to hear from
yeah,
each other,
yeah.
motivate each other, to talk to each other, to encourage each other. It's so important as poets.
Mm.
Playwrights are more than poets, and poets is an inherent ability, and is a rare commodity. So for you to see a poet is even very rare in a very rare space. So for you to be associated with poets and have poets together with you, I think is an honor, in this stage
Yeah,
in life.
yes. And there's a post I put the other day, I got it on Facebook and shared it in the group. Well, where it said like people perish because they follow politicians instead of following poets.
Yes. I mean, look at the African syndrome. I mean, politics. We just have jabber politics. We have hoodwinked politics. We have grimaced politics. We have politics of lack of adherence to the core values of humanity. And poets encourage the core values of humanity, because
True.
what poets write about is the inherent innate feeling which
Mm,
they naturally get, and they predispose it to the world.
mm.
So a poet and a politician are quite disparate, even in
Yeah,
ideologies.
yeah. And
Poet wants to say the truth, right? But the politician always wants to bewilder. So I don't think politicians are good poets, and poets, I don't think they're good politicians.
No, they cannot be. And I think politicians only read the poets to suspicious to see whether they're being attacked or they're
Yes, yes,
or being condemned or they are
yes.
being
That's
praised.
yes, yes. But trust us, cryptic poets will always keep saying they are ill, but in crypticness. So they'll just keep reading and trying to decipher what are they
And
talking
they
about.
will not get anything.
They'll just be looking at, yes, this node is not created. That so and so you said you're going to do, you didn't do. You know how
Yeah,
politicians just feel. So yeah, but
yeah.
another tool of poetry which I love very much is the didactism,
Mm,
the use of aphorism and trying to actually talk about issues in the
mm,
society that are pressing. Those
mm,
things are what makes poetry very potent and a viable tool in social recreation, and
mm.
rehabilitation. Yes.
Yeah, that's quite true. Yeah, we've spoken a lot about poetry. We have a few minutes to go. And as earlier
Okay.
on, I said we might need to educate people about our countries.
Okay.
And we know that Lagos, if you ask me today, I would have said Lagos is the biggest city in
Yes.
Nigeria, but you tell me it's Abuja. I know Abuja is the capital.
No, I didn't say it's I didn't say it's Abuja. I said it's Ibadan.
Ibadan,
Ibadan.
there you go. Yeah, Ibadan is the
Yes.
biggest.
Yes.
And is it
It's the
on the
biggest in West
mainland?
Africa. Is the biggest in West Africa though. Ibadan too.
Wow, Ibadan.
Yes.
And is it on the
Yes.
mainland or is this on an island?
No, it's on the mainland. It's on the mainland.
It's Lagos that
Uh,
it is Lagos that is an island.
yes, and some of the riverine states where there's petroleum,
Mm,
like Bayelsa, like
mm,
Delta,
yeah.
like those states are riverine, so they
Mhm.
have more islands around them.
Okay. So
They're more
so
of
there's
islands.
so there's Ibadan, then Abuja,
No, there's Ibadan, there's Kano.
Kano, and then Kano is in the north.
Yes, it's in the north. There's Sokoto, is in the north too. You know, like the north has a lot of landmass.
Mm,
There's Kaduna also, and the north has the most populous people also
okay.
in Nigeria, according
Mm,
to our census.
all
According
right.
to our census.
Mm,
But from the west is Lagos. Lagos has the most populous. Lagos is the most populous. Is one of the most populous states in Nigeria because
mm,
of its commerciality. It has this
okay.
commercial hub, and
And
it's close to the port, so it's
mm,
close to Atlantic. So it's close to an ocean, so it has a lot of traffic in terms of shipments, in terms of
mm,
import and export. You understand? So that's what makes it very, very commercial.
and
So
fair enough.
that's why, and it was a former capital of Nigeria. You
Oh,
know,
it used to be the
for a
capital
long,
before.
long time, yes, for close to 40 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
for
you went to
close to 40
Abuja,
years. Yes, then it came to Abuja.
and
So
that's where
that's
you
why
are.
Lagos. Yes, I'm in
Mm,
Abuja. Yes, yes,
okay. I remember Nigeria was also those of us who have been around for some time. We remember the Biafra War. I don't know whether you were
yes.
around that time.
I was not born then. Uh, I was born in the 90s, and the war happened in the 60s. So,
Yeah,
but
I remember I was a young kid. I think I was around 10 when it was happening. And
I heard about.
we used to hear of General Ojuku. Was it
Yes,
Ojuku or was he
but
a general,
it was
Colonel Ojuku?
Ojuku. Yes,
Yeah, and
yes.
then
Biafran
it
forces.
was Major
General
Gowon
Gowon and
Who
Gowon.
came
Yeah.
and beat him out and so on. And
And
so,
that's one of the dark ages of Nigeria because
yeah.
the war was just incited by lack of national cohesion.
Mm,
When Nigeria first was formed, Nigeria was looking for an identity which
yes.
was supposed to be a nationalistic outlook kind of thing, but it
Mm,
was now severed into tribalistic and ethnicistic
mm,
perspective, which now made uh, emanated a sort of fracas between
mm,
tribes, and
yes.
that led to the civil war happening. And the
Yeah,
civil war was kind of,
because Ojuku wanted his own state.
yeah,
Biafra.
it's not really Ojuku. It was the people from Eastern Nigeria that wanted the state because of some grievances, some
Ah,
if you heard about the pop, about some massacres,
yeah.
so the Igbos, which are the predominant tribe in the
Mm,
Eastern Nigeria, were being massacred in
mm,
some places. according to that, they said they didn't want to have it anymore. They said they wanted to have their own country. That why should they be part of? So Gowon was on a mission to make Nigeria one. That there was
Okay.
no need for the Eastern fragment to actually really fragment. That there should still be a piece of Nigeria. So it took close to 3 years because the war started. The war actually started with the pre phase of the war was the assassination of the Nigerian leaders, the leader by the military.
Okay.
The leaders that were assassinated were Sir Ahmadu Bello, Satafa Balewa, and Okotiebo. Then the Western Premier that also assassinated, called Akintola. So that assassination was carried out by, according to their words, the Igbo sect of the military. And that military coup happened January 12th, 1966. There was a counter coup that happened. After that coup happened, when those people were killed, the military leader that took over was an Igbo man. So it was clearly perceived as an Igbo coup because the person that took over as the leader of Nigeria, the military defunct ad hoc leader, became a man known as General Aguiyi Ironsi, and he was Igbo. So Aguiyi Ironsi took over, but he only lasted about 5 months, 6 months, because on July that same year, he was assassinated and he was killed. That's when the one took over.
Yeah. So apparently you've read a bit of, you are not born that time, but apparently, apparently you've read,
I know it's like the back
you
of my
read
hand,
the
like something
history.
that there knows it. It's like
The
history.
history
It's
of the
like
country. And this gives me an idea. This gives me an idea that in one of those meetings which we are going to start, we could have one of us from any of those countries to tell us about their country. And we learn from each other. Yeah, I had to cut you short on that story because we are running out of time. But I want us to wrap the program, and also you tell me, well, okay, you've already said what you know about, what you feel about Global Voices, but maybe you may have a last word to tell the viewers who may not be in Global Voices and also members of Global Voices. Any last word before we wind up?
My last word is poetry is a modern day advent of reinvention of yourself, of the society, of what you want the future to be.
Yes.
So I feel that writers should come to Global Verses, should contribute to Global Verses, should listen to the podcast, because we're not only trying to promote ourselves, we're trying to promote things that are innate in us and we want it to come out to the world. So writers don't just write, and poets don't just write because they feel like they just have what to write. They write because they want to get their inspiration across to people, to feel them, to understand what they understand, to feel their plight in this world. There are different things wrong with the world now: climate change, emotional crisis, mental health issues. All these things are brought in the foray. For instance, someone could be having some mental health issues and could relate it in a poem. And if that person relates it in a poem, someone could actually read it, encourage the person and know that, this is how this person is feeling. And before you know, the person could have some act feeling of bitterness and will not take some drastic decisions. But some things that are inside us, and you actually just let it kill you and it just degrades you in, those things are some of the things that the world is coming to, the world is having some problems with. So I think with poetry, with Global Verses, with the community, I think we should actually promote it so that we can come together as poets and we can actually affect each other positively.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Emeka. It was a pleasure having you. We've run out of time, but we'll be meeting again here as a meeting of all the poets, or you again in another interview when we take it to the next level. So thank you very much, and all the best, and stay well.
All right, stay well.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Okay.